What's up everyone, it's Q from Retro Q Gaming, and I want to open this video with a little bit of a disclaimer, as I do with many of my Nintendo videos nowadays. For the simple reason is it usually prevents anyone from calling me a hater, or a fanboy, or just someone who hates them and just is completely out to sink them down or whatever. But I have a Nintendo Switch. I enjoy my Nintendo Switch. I got it on day one. I've put a considerable amount of time into Legend of Zelda, as well as a considerable amount of time into Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and just recently I got Ultra Street Fighter 2, and I'm surprised at how much I'm actually enjoying that. Not because of what it is, but just because of the specific, the unique situation around Ultra Street Fighter 2. I also have ordered the Secret of Mana collection, despite it not actually having an English release, because they are some of my favourite games of all time, and Secret of Mana is my #1 game of all time, as well as Tekken Densetsu 3 being one of the top 5 games I've ever played. And I can play Secret of Mana with my eyes closed upside down at this point, even if there's no English, and Tekken Densetsu 2, or 3 I should say, I can play like 90% of all the campaigns without dialogue. So you can't accuse me of hating the Switch. It's a great system, as many people will understand, given the huge amount of sales numbers and anticipation behind it. And I mean, when you look at Nintendo releasing the Super Mario Odyssey at the end of the year, a game that will probably sell a couple of million Switches alone by itself, yeah, I mean, you can't deny that. But there is no denying that the Nintendo Switch, as well as Nintendo in general the last while, have made some questionable choices and questionable decisions. In particular, some of their biggest ones, which I'm going to use as evidence, as clear-cut, clear-as-day evidence, to kind of validate my worry and reasoning for the main point of this video. So let's travel way back in time to the Nintendo 64. Developers and publishers were telling Nintendo, you have a great system, but please do not go with cartridges. It will gimp the system, and we will not be able to do what we want and take advantage of the power. Nintendo didn't care, Nintendo didn't listen, they went with their own proprietary, expensive to sell cartridges so they could make a profit and stick with what they wanted. We all know about the legendary stories of Nintendo and the whole draconian thing they played during the NES and SNES days, especially with cartridges, so it makes sense. Anyway, what happened? Nintendo went with the cartridge on the Nintendo 64, and of course it's usually considered the main reason why the system played second fiddle to the PlayStation 1. Let's go forward one generation again. We have the Nintendo GameCube. Developers said, hey, you've got a pretty decent system here, but please go with DVD. Even if you don't use, or even if you don't include an actual DVD video playback and DVD licensing, let us use proprietary standard style DVD 4.5s or DVD 9s, and let us just use them. What did Nintendo do? They went with DVD 1s, a 1.3 gigabyte mini DVD disc, which obviously contained roughly 1/4 of the space of a standard single layer DVD. Obviously this led to problems and things being needed to cut back or spread out on multiple discs, so it was one of the many problems of the GameCube. Fast forward a little bit again to the Nintendo Wii, which was essentially just a slightly overclocked GameCube. The hardware was almost identical, and it still released in standard definition, despite both competitive consoles from other manufacturers releasing in high definition and considerably more powerful systems. And of course the Nintendo Wii, one of the biggest issues reported with it as well, the gimmicky control system. Now, despite all of that, yes, the system did go on to sell over 100 million units, but it was mostly considered, even to this day, to be the whole casual console and still have many failings. Of course, it did introduce a couple of, well, we'll call them legendary editions at this point, because the Nintendo Wii basically pioneered in console essence to a degree, I suppose, the Virtual Console. Having said that, the Virtual Console was a feature that was strangely omitted from the Nintendo Wii U, the next console we're going to talk about. And despite them omitting that feature at launch and adding it later, well, we all know some of the many failings of the Nintendo Wii U, the console that has become the worst selling Nintendo home console of all time, and their second biggest flop ever created, next to the Virtual Boy. Again, another legendary flop that is roughly 20 years old, that they've managed to almost replicate, in a sense, 20 years later. And of course, the Nintendo Switch that we're using today, while a great system, is definitely not perfect, has many issues that have either been left out of the Nintendo Switch that were included in previous generations, or even second ago generations from Nintendo's own hardware themselves, or that other manufacturers have been getting correct and strangely omitted or released in a completely roundabout, messed up way on the Nintendo Switch, that other manufacturers have been using for, well, let's say about 15 years, looking back to, say, the PS2 and Xbox and GameCube era, and Nintendo were still making cock-ups in that aspect of it. So I feel like I've given sufficient evidence to express my worries or justifiably express my worries when I want to talk about this next point. So, Nintendo have announced last night that they're going to release some more of the details on the paid subscription service to play games online for the Nintendo Switch. This isn't the main focus of the video, but it is a key point that's going to relate to the main focus, which we'll get to in a second. Real quick, the service has been valued at $20 per year, with a 1 month and 3 month subscription service available as well if you don't want to pony up for the whole thing from the get-go. The service has been delayed from later 2017, like originally promised, to at some point in 2018, which, well, we'll see. It remains to be seen how that's going to turn out, but the fact that it needs to be delayed and didn't launch on day one is already somewhat concerning. So there's also one other big feature that was originally promised with the subscription service and the paid subscription service for the Nintendo Switch, that the original plan was to give you access to one virtual console game a month, which would rotate and change every month. So let's just say, for example, that the system was live now, let's say for June you would have access to Super Mario Brothers, so you could play that through all of June, and then in July you would lose access to Super Mario Brothers, and maybe you would get access to Super Mario Brothers 2, rinse and repeat, etc., etc. One of the big features that was included in these updated subscription service versions of the game would that they be patched to work with online services. And of course, at the time, it was promised on the initial release, and, well, not initial release, the initial announcement of this service, that it would include NES and SNES games and possibly more. Now, this is where stuff starts to get a little bit sketchy and a little bit hitting the fan. So once all this info and all came out last night on the upgraded or updated info on the subscription service, some questions were asked. In particular, two important ones were asked, and Nintendo replied to them. So the first one: is a subscription to the new Switch online service the only way to get classic games, or will there also be a virtual console type service that allows you to purchase games individually? To which Nintendo had to say, we have nothing to announce on this topic. Straight away, red flags, alarms, everything. To me, that's what that reads as. Now, the second one that they kind of set more alarms off with. Now keep in mind, when this system was announced, or this subscription service I should say rather than system, they specifically said that NES and SNES games would be available with online patched in multiplayer features, and that other systems would be a possibility. So here's what the second question had to ask: does the compilation of classic games include Super Nintendo and Nintendo 64 games? To which Nintendo replied, at launch, the classic game library will include NES games. Super NES games continue to be under consideration, but we have nothing further to announce at this time. So straight away, there's some more backtracking. Now, if you were to check my video from some point in January that actually talked about the Nintendo Switch presentation, the proper announcement of it, when they showed off the console, when they showed off some of the specs, the details, the hardware, as well as the games and the support, you will see in that video, I talk about the actual online subservice subscription. What am I talking about? I am way too tired. Service subscription, where they specifically mention that NES and SNES games will be included, as well as multiple other people out on the internet will say the same thing, because they all were going off the same info that Nintendo published on their own website when they announced this service. So it's gotten to the point where if you look at everything I've brought up in this video, as well as the non-individual specifics that I've gone into, because there's way more, let's face it, than the key points I listed in this video, it's got to the point where I am not willing to give Nintendo the benefit of the doubt that they will release a virtual console. Reggie has come out and said, hey, listen, we know people want a virtual console. We'll have more to talk about that later. E3 is 2 weeks away. This subscription service doesn't launch for another year or so. A lot could happen in that time, but it's gotten to the point where I am no longer giving Nintendo the benefit of the doubt in this particular situation. I could be wrong. The first and biggest announcement of Nintendo's E3 presentation could be a virtual console, for all I know. It could not be. But as it stands at the moment, Nintendo have worried me that a virtual console, a proper virtual console as we know it from the Wii, the Wii U, their 3DS, and the new Nintendo 3DS, it now screams to me, this service is not coming. Nintendo, you need to prove me wrong. And you need to announce this, you need to prove me wrong, and to actually release this service. Give us some details about it, because right now you have myself and many other Switch owners extremely worried. And I don't know about you guys, but that is not something I wanted to hear or something I want to feel in respect to a company that I'm supposed to be trusting and giving money to for their product. It's just bizarre, in my opinion. So, how do you think this is going to play out? Are you still giving Nintendo the benefit of the doubt? Are you still thinking, oh yeah, E3 is 2 weeks away, they'll definitely do it at that? Well, let's face it, Nintendo have kind of made a series of slip-ups in the past 20 years or so, and I'm no longer giving them the benefit of the doubt, as I've said multiple times. So what's your take on this? Are you worried? Are you not worried? Did you know about this? Did you not know about this? Did you never look at it in this light? What's the deal with it? Let me know all that in the comment section below. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. You can follow me on Twitter, details in the description. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the rest of the videos in my channel.